Hi, I'm Sarah, a 30-year-old department head at a company where ambition is as common as a morning coffee. My world is a balancing act between being a mother to my bubbly 5-year-old, Lily, and navigating the corporate labyrinth. It wasn't always like this, though. I met my husband, Mark, at this very company. We were both fresh recruits then, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I remember our first meeting like it was yesterday. I was struggling with the copier, and Mark walked over with a smirk. "Need a hand with that?" he asked, his tone teasing. I rolled my eyes, but smiled. "I've got it, but thanks." That was the beginning of everything: work, love, marriage, and then Lily came along. I took maternity leave, relishing the time with her. When I returned to work, I found Mark had climbed up the ranks to a department head. One evening, at home, I was going through some work documents when Mark glanced over. "You're really going all in with this, huh?" he said, a slight edge to his voice. I looked up, a bit taken aback. "Well, yeah, I love my job, you know that." Mark shrugged, but his tone was laced with something I couldn't quite place. "Sure, but don't you think Lily needs you more right now?" I sighed, a familiar debate on the horizon. "Mark, we've been over this. Lily is doing great, and my mom helps out a lot. I can't just give up on my career." The conversation shifted to more mundane topics, but his words lingered in my mind. It wasn't the first time he'd hinted at his discomfort with my career aspirations. A year later, I too became a department head, a fact that seemed to unsettle Mark more than he let on. His once playful banter at home took on a sharper tone. One day, as I was prepping for a big presentation, Mark walked into the room, his expression hard to read. "So, you're presenting to the board today, huh?" I nodded, my focus on the notes in front of me. "Yeah, it's a big opportunity for me." Mark leaned against the doorframe, his voice tinged with sarcasm. "Just don't forget who you're coming home to. Don't let this job take over your life, Sarah." I stopped, looking up at him. "Mark, what's that supposed to mean?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing, just, be careful, that's all." But it was clear it meant more than nothing. Mark's attitude towards my career had shifted from supportive to something more resentful, something I never expected from the man I fell in love with. It was a Wednesday evening, the kind where the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, creating a serene backdrop that sharply contrasted the growing tension indoors. We were seated at the dinner table, Lily's chatter about her day at school providing a brief respite from the unspoken conflict between Mark and me. "Mommy, look." Lily beamed, holding up a crayon drawing of a woman in a suit. "I drew you at work. You look like a superhero." I smiled, genuinely touched. "That's amazing, sweetie. Thank you." Mark looked at the drawing over Lily's shoulder, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "That's nice, Lily. But remember, the most important job for Mommy is here, with us." I felt my smile falter, a familiar irritation bubbling up. "Mark, I think it's important for Lily to know that her mom can have a career and be there for her family," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. He let out a sigh, setting down his fork. "I just think you're stretching yourself too thin, Sarah. Lily needs you." I was about to retort when the phone rang, cutting through the mounting tension. Mark answered, and I immediately recognized the shrill, insistent tone on the other end. It was his mother, Helen. "Hello, Mom." "Yes, she's here." "I know, but..." Mark's voice was a mix of resignation and frustration. I strained to hear Helen's words. "Mark, you need to put your foot down. Tell Sarah to slow down with her work. It's not good for Lily, or for your marriage." Mark's response was quieter, but the words stung nonetheless. "I agree, Mom. I've tried talking to her, but she won't listen." "Yes, I'll try again." He hung up, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "Was that your mother? Telling you to get me to quit my job?" Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking exasperated. She's just worried, Sarah. She thinks you should focus more on Lily and less on work. And I can't say I disagree. I clenched my fists under the table, feeling a surge of anger. So, now your mother is dictating how I should handle my career? Mark, I'm not just Lily's mother or your wife. I have my own aspirations. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. And what about my aspirations, Sarah? Isn't it enough that I'm working hard to provide for us? I stood up too, my heart racing. I'm also providing, Mark. Why can't you understand that I'm capable of managing both my career and my family? He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. Because every time you manage both, it seems like our family gets the short end of the stick. With that, he stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, fuming and frustrated. The tension at home had reached a boiling point, but little did I know that work was about to throw another curveball into the mix. It was a Monday morning, crisp and clear, when the director of our company called Mark and me into his office. The air was thick with anticipation as we sat across from him. Sarah, Mark, I'm sure you're both aware of the upcoming vacancy for the operations manager position, he began, his eyes shifting between us. Mark nodded eagerly, a gleam in his eye. Yes, we've heard about it. The director leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. Well, I wanted to talk to you both, because you're on the shortlist for the promotion. It's a tough decision, you're both highly qualified. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, but before I could respond, Mark jumped in. That's great to hear, but I think it's clear who the better fit is. I mean, with my experience. I cut him off, my voice firm. Actually, I believe I have just as much to offer for the role. My recent projects have significantly boosted our department's performance. The director raised his hand, signaling us to calm down. I appreciate both of your inputs. We'll make a decision in the coming weeks. Best of luck to you both. As we left the office, Mark was visibly fuming. Once we were alone in the elevator, he turned to me, his voice low and harsh. Sarah, you should step down from this. I deserve this promotion. I looked at him, incredulous. Why should I step down? I've worked just as hard as you, if not harder. Mark's jaw clenched. Because I'm the man of the house. It's my responsibility to be the provider. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. Mark, this isn't the 1950s. I have every right to pursue this promotion. We exited the elevator, our steps echoing in the empty hallway. Mark stopped, turning to me. This isn't just about the job, Sarah, it's about our family. You're already stretched thin. Think about Lily. I felt a surge of frustration. I am thinking about Lily. I want to show her that her mother is strong and capable. That she can achieve anything she sets her mind to. Mark scoffed. Fine, but if you get this promotion, don't expect things to stay the same between us. The threat in his tone was clear, and it sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just a competition for a job, it was a battle for respect and equality in our relationship. That evening, the Cold War at home continued. Mark's mother called, her words laced with disappointment. Sarah, I can't believe you're considering this. You need to let Mark have this opportunity. It's the right thing to do for your family. Her words only fueled my determination. Helen, with all due respect, this is a decision for Mark and me to make. I won't step down just because Mark thinks he's entitled to the position. After hanging up, I looked over at Lily, who was playing with her dolls, oblivious to the storm around her. I whispered a promise to myself, no matter what, I would stand my ground. This promotion was more than just a job, it was a statement, a declaration that I, too, deserved recognition and respect. The stress of the ongoing promotion battle and the tension at home with Mark began taking a toll on me. I started feeling unusually fatigued, my mind wasn't as sharp, and I struggled to concentrate. One morning, I was in the kitchen, trying to prepare breakfast, but everything seemed like an uphill task. "Lily, can you please get your backpack? We're running late," I called out, my voice lacking its usual energy. Lily, ever so observant, looked at me with concern in her little eyes. "Mommy, are you okay? You look really tired." I forced a smile, not wanting to worry her. "I'm fine, honey. Just a bit tired, that's all." At work, things weren't much better. My performance was slipping, and it didn't go unnoticed. My boss, Mr. Thompson, called me into his office one afternoon. His expression was a mix of concern and professionalism. "Sarah, is everything all right? Your work lately has been, well, it's not up to your usual standard," Mr. Thompson inquired, his tone gentle yet firm. I sighed, feeling a wave of embarrassment and frustration. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I've just not been feeling well lately." "I'm not sure what's wrong." He leaned back in his chair, considering my words. "I understand, but you know this is a critical time for the department, especially with the promotion on the line. Do you think you can handle your responsibilities?" I nodded, though doubt crept in. "Yes, I can. I just need a couple of days to get back on track." As I left his office, my mind was racing with worry. What if this illness cost me the promotion? What if Mark was right about me stretching myself too thin? When I got home, Mark was there, and his reaction to my state was the opposite of what I needed. "You look terrible, Sarah. Maybe this is a sign that you should step down from the promotion race." His words stung, and I snapped. "No, Mark. I'm just not feeling well. This has nothing to do with the job." He shrugged, his voice laced with a hint of satisfaction. "Well, if you can't handle the pressure, maybe it's for the best." I turned away, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. I decided to take a few days off without pay, hoping that rest would help me recuperate. However, rest didn't seem to make things better. My condition worsened, and I found myself unable to shake off the fatigue and brain fog. I was lying on the couch one evening, Lily sitting beside me, coloring. "Mommy, don't be sad. I'll make you feel better," she said, her voice full of childlike innocence. I smiled weakly. "Thank you, sweetie. Mommy just needs to rest a bit." But as the days passed, my health didn't improve. I began to worry that something more serious was amiss. I was about to learn that my condition was no mere coincidence, and the truth behind it would shake me to my core. As my health continued to decline, I found myself spending more time at home, curled up on the sofa with a blanket, feeling a weariness I couldn't shake off. Lily, my sweet daughter, tried her best to cheer me up, her innocent attempts at playing doctor both heartwarming and heartbreaking. One evening, as I lay there, Lily came up to me with a serious look on her face. "Mommy, I'm going to make you all better," she declared, clutching her toy stethoscope. I managed a weak smile. "Oh, is Dr. Lily in the house?" "Yes, and I have just the thing for you," she said, running off to her room. She returned with a small, colorful pill in her hand. "Here, Mommy, this will make you feel better. Daddy said it's a special vitamin." I froze, the pill between her tiny fingers sending alarm bells ringing in my head. "Lily, where did you get this from?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide and innocent. "From Daddy's room. He gives me one every day to put them in your food. He said it's a secret game." My heart pounded in my chest. "Lily, sweetie, this is very important. Can you show me where you got these pills from?" She nodded, taking my hand and leading me to Mark's bedside drawer. Inside, I found a small bottle of pills, none of which I recognized. I hugged her tightly, a sense of dread washing over me. Mark's recent behavior, my inexplicable symptoms, and now this discovery. It was too much to be a coincidence. "Lily, thank you for showing me this. You're such a good girl," I said, masking the turmoil inside me. After tucking her into bed, I took the bottle of pills and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands trembled as I Googled the imprints on the pills. The search results sent a chill down my spine. They were a strong prescription medication, not vitamins. I sat on the bathroom floor, the reality sinking in. Mark had been giving me these pills, under the guise of a game with our daughter. But why? What was he trying to achieve? The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, forming a picture so sinister it was hard to comprehend. This wasn't just about the promotion or our marital issues. This was something much darker. Armed with the bottle of pills and a heart full of dread, I knew I needed concrete evidence before confronting Mark. The next morning, I made an appointment with my doctor under the guise of a routine checkup. Sitting in the doctor's office, I presented the pills. "Doctor, I found these, and I think I've been unknowingly taking them. Can you tell me what they are?" The doctor examined the pills closely, his brow furrowing. "Sarah, these are strong meds, not something to be taken lightly. How have you been feeling lately?" I recounted my symptoms, the fatigue, the confusion, the general sense of unwellness. He nodded, jotting down notes. "We'll do some blood work right away. If these pills are causing your symptoms, it'll show up in the tests." A couple of days later, the test results confirmed my worst fears. The medication was in my system, and it was causing my symptoms. I felt a mix of relief and horror, relief that I wasn't imagining things, and horror at the thought of my husband's betrayal. I looked at the doctor, a sense of dread washing over me. "Can these be bought over the counter? Without a prescription?" He shook his head, his expression grave. "Absolutely not. These are strong prescription medications. They can be quite harmful if taken without proper medical supervision." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just Mark acting alone, his mother, Helen, a pharmacist, must be involved too. It was a chilling realization. The two people I had trusted were conspiring against me, using their knowledge and access to harm me. I thanked the doctor and left his office, my mind racing. The drive home was a blur. I was in a state of shock, struggling to comprehend the depth of the betrayal. Mark and his mother had crossed a line that was unfathomable. At home, I sat in the living room, the test results and the bottle of pills on the coffee table in front of me. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, forming a picture so sinister, so unthinkable, that it shook me to my core. I needed to confront them, to face them with the truth. But first, I had to ensure Lily's safety. I called my mother, asking her to take Lily for a few days, making up an excuse about needing some time to deal with work stress. Once Lily was safely with my mother, I planned the confrontation. I needed them to admit what they had done. I needed to know why. How could they betray me like this? How could they use Lily, an innocent child, in their twisted game? The next day, I called Mark and Helen, asking to meet at Helen's house. My voice was calm, but inside, I was a maelstrom of emotions, anger, betrayal, but above all, determination. I was going to expose their deceit and protect myself and my daughter, no matter what it took. The drive to Helen's house was one of the longest of my life, each mile stretching out like an eternity. As I parked outside, my heart was pounding, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, the bottle of pills and the medical report in my bag. I knocked on the door, and Helen opened it, a fake smile plastered on her face. "Sarah, dear, come in. What's this about?" Mark was sitting in the living room, his expression a mix of worry and defiance. I didn't waste any time. "Mark, Helen, I know about the pills," I started, my voice firm, despite the storm of emotions inside me. Mark's face turned ashen. "What pills, Sarah?" I pulled out the bottle and slammed it on the coffee table. "These pills. The ones you've been giving me through Lily. And my test results show they're the reason for my illness." Helen's eyes widened, and her facade crumbled. Sarah, this is a misunderstanding. Why would we do something like that? Her voice was shaking, but her words lacked sincerity. It's no misunderstanding, Helen. These are prescription drugs. And being a pharmacist, you would have easy access to them. Mark stood up, his hands clenched into fists. Sarah, you're blowing this out of proportion. I was just trying to level the playing field for the promotion. I stared at him in disbelief. By poisoning me? Using our daughter in your scheme? Helen chimed in, her voice now laced with desperation. Mark was just worried about his career. He didn't mean any harm. I shook my head, anger surging through me. That's not an excuse. You both endangered my life, and you used Lily to do it. That's unforgivable. Mark's face was a picture of guilt now. Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would go this far. Helen started to sob, her hands trembling. Please, Sarah, we can work this out. Don't destroy our family over this. But it was too late for apologies. This is beyond working out, Helen. I'm taking this to the police. What you did is criminal. Mark reached out, his voice filled with panic. Sarah, wait. Think about what this will do to Lily. I pulled away, my decision firm. I am thinking about Lily. That's why I can't let you get away with this. She deserves better. Leaving them in their stunned silence, I walked out of the house, my mind made up. I had to protect my daughter and myself from any further harm. After leaving Helen's house, my mind was made up. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself and Lily. I went straight to the police station, my hands trembling as I held the evidence tightly. The investigation moved quickly. Mark and Helen were brought in for questioning, and the evidence against them was overwhelming. They were charged with poisoning, and the trial was set. The day of the trial was tense. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clenched in my lap as the prosecutor laid out the case against Mark and Helen. Mark's face was ashen, and Helen looked like she was on the verge of tears. When it was time for my testimony, I took the stand, my voice steady as I recounted the events. I trusted them, and they betrayed me. They used my daughter to poison me. Mark's lawyer tried to discredit me, suggesting that I was fabricating the story for personal gain. But the evidence spoke for itself. In the end, the jury found them guilty. Mark and Helen were sentenced to prison for their actions. As the judge pronounced the sentence, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice was served, but sorrow for what my family had become. After the trial, I focused on rebuilding my life. I was promoted to the vacant position at work, a bittersweet victory. Lily and I moved into a new home, starting fresh. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed in our new home, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. Mommy, are you happy now? I kissed her forehead, feeling a sense of peace. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. And we were. Despite the pain and betrayal, we found strength in each other. I showed Lily that we could overcome any obstacle, and that truth and justice would always prevail. As I turned off the light and left her room, I knew that this was just the beginning of our new journey. A journey of healing, of new opportunities, and most importantly, of hope. Our future was uncertain, but I was determined to make it bright, for both Lily and myself.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, Since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.